Well, good afternoon.
Hell of a fade out, that. Hell of a fade out. Look at you, Norman Cook.
It's so difficult because we usually we'll have a thing made, and we haven't got a thing made for this show. But welcome to Three's a Crowd with two people on again.
We must get round to that.
Yeah. Big thanks to Rye for once again letting us down. Where is he? Where is he?
He's got real mates now. He's got like the BBC. He's doing a bit of work for them. Actually, saying that, he's doing his watch along at the minute. It's half time. Borough fans, as you probably know, it's 0-0 between yourselves and Cardiff City right now. So Rye can't join us as he's doing that, and then he's doing some work with the Beeb because he's all up market now apparently.
Yeah. Hugh Edwards has gone, bring in Rye. Perfect.
I suppose he rhymes with genus, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. In the Premier League, Arsenal winning by 1-0. Kai Havertz with a goal in the 38th minute. So Premier League action taking place as well. So this is our North East Football podcast, an hour of... probably anger from me when we start talking about Newcastle United. In fact, I feel like I should get it out of the way. Anger because of the transfer window. I'm also currently in the queue for Oasis tickets. I'm currently, thanks to Ticketmaster's ineptitude this morning, I'm currently 312,000th in the queue for tickets for Murrayfield. Chances of getting them? Probably limited, but I'll continue with this throughout the day. I could probably still be queuing by the time we do next week's podcast. Transfer window, mate. Honestly, I will start with it if you don't mind. It's been an absolute...
Go for it, mate. I know you need to. Let it out, mate.
It's been a ball ache. It's been a ball ache from start to finish. And, you know, using some American terminology, we've been looking for players in the defense. We've been looking for players in the offense. And what did we get on transfer deadline day?
A garden fence? Yeah.
Yeah, a fence. Outside the football ground. I'm sure we will talk a little bit more about this later on. But on the playing front, absolute disaster. Absolute disaster. Darren Eales really should hang his head in shame. The man who stands in the stack and dances around singing songs pre-match has completely let us down on this transfer front. And to chase Mark Gahey for 4 weeks and have your pants pulled down and embarrassed in front of the whole Premier League comes down to your chief executive and who he puts in place at the football club. Mitchell's come in. I've seen a lot of people say Mitchell can't be blamed. He's only been there a short period of time. Craig Hope has done a really good article in the Daily Mail this morning, basically putting Eales in the firing line, saying that Eales is the man to blame for Amanda and Mirdad leaving the club. Quite a damning article, that. And it's why I lay the blame at Darren Eales' feet. When our chairman arrives, is he coming this weekend? I wouldn't be surprised. Is he going to have a decision to make? Could Eales be packing his, desk, and is there a P45 going to be issued this week? Because it's ineptitude for me at the highest level. And we have signed players. We brought Asula in from Sheffield United. He's a forward. He's a young forward who will play third fiddle behind, Isaac and Wilson. But he's somebody who can learn. Not too down on him. The goalkeeper, whose name none of us on this channel have even attempted to get right, because we don't expect to be hanging around long, comes in. He's not even making it onto the bench. 37-year-old John Ruddy's making it onto the bench ahead of Martin Dubravka. And we've also brought in, a player who, in Lloyd Kelly is probably, good enough, to play in our team, but he's not the star name that we were expecting, and again, no offense to the kid, but, is he somebody who's, going to be a regular in Newcastle United's lineup this season? Is he going to be a Champions League star moving forward? I can't say, because we haven't seen enough of him. But all in all, disappointing. Transfer window finished with Ryan Fraser leaving. Thank God for that. Because, he was really just it's just another embarrassing situation for the club, hanging around like a bad smell when it was quite clear he didn't want him. Got the move to Southampton, and I won't wish him well, but just very disappointed. And I'm more disappointed in myself for sitting up till 10:30 and watching it, because I had it on most of the day yesterday, as all good, journalists and podcasters do. And it was an absolute waste of time. It really was. So disappointed. The squad is the same squad we had last season. We're weak at the back, because if we get an injury to a defender, if a Fabian Schär or a Dan Burn or an Emil Kraft gets injured in the next couple of weeks, we're up against it until January, struggling again. And the right wing situation, I'm not so disappointed with it in the sense that we'll probably be able to squeeze another season out of Miguel Almiron and Jacob Murphy. We'll probably be able to play Harvey Barnes and Anthony Gordon left and right. But it's just so frustrating. There's not that big name signing coming in. And you can't say it's down to PSR, because we had money to spend, which we offered 60 odd million for Elise. We offered £65 million plus add-ons for Mark Gahey. There was money there. So you can say, oh yeah, PSR, blah, 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 but that's bollocks, man. Absolute rubbish. We had money to spend, and we haven't spent it. And then coming out with a line and, where you're saying, you far rather spend it on somebody you want, not just go and spend it for spending's sake. There was plenty of players out there. You're telling me that, Marmadishvili wouldn't have made a difference to Newcastle United's team goalkeeper for 30 million quid. Nick Pope's not going to be around forever. He's in the wrong age bracket. Yet we've gone and wasted money on a keeper from Forest, probably to do with the FFP. We've let two players go who probably could have developed it under Howe at Newcastle, in Elliot Anderson and Minty. Brighton's took a gamble on him. So, yeah, overall, I mean, this is a warm-up, because I will be back this afternoon on my own channel for the and me, Stu and Mitch are probably going to take, Darren and the crew at Newcastle a new backside. But it's not a happy time. And the fence thing, well, we will come to that, but that's just another thing that's in the media for the wrong, putting the club in the media for the wrong reasons. But let's talk Sunderland.
Yeah.
Ted, what's your feelings on the transfer window at Sunderland? Do you feel it's a difficult one, because you lost? We were talking about Jack Clark last week, and that was a disappointment. Understandable why he left, but what's your overall view of the transfer window?
Well, I mean, look, we proved in the first game without him there's life after Jack Clark, without a doubt. I'm actually pretty impressed. I'm pretty happy with the business that's been done yesterday. I'll go through them. So we've got Chris Mepham, who arrived on loan from Bournemouth, a 26-year-old central defender, 60 appearances in the Premier League, international obviously for Wales as well. I think that's a really sound piece of work there in terms of my, not criticism, but my worry with the defence was it was lacking a little bit of leadership. And I don't think we've really had that strong defensive style of leadership since Danny Bath left. And yeah, listen, Luke O'Nine's experienced and all that, but he's not what I would call an out-and-out defender. I think you need somebody who they've done their bread and butter over the years of being a centre-back and, know that job inside out. So Chris Met was a fantastic piece of business for me. That's great. Milan Aleksic, who's a Slovakian. I should have done my work on that one, to be honest, but there you go. So 18-year-old, just turned 19 today, actually. He's actually Serbian. I do apologise. So £3.1 million deal, which, considering our lack of spending, Steve, is actually a decent outlay for a midfielder of that age as well. Very, very highly regarded Central Europe. Listen, it sounds like he might be one for the future. He does play in that kind of number 8 role. He's a bit more attacking as a midfielder. So let's see what happens with him. Apparently very, very highly rated, though, all the same. After that, we got the penultimate one, and this is the one that really, really impresses me. We've got Salis Abdul Samed, who's 24 years old, and he's signed from League One side Lens. It's with an option to buy as well. He's a Ghana international, a full Ghana international as well. He's been a regular for the French side in the last 2 seasons, helped them qualify for the Champions League and Europa Conference League, and actually has 6 Champions League appearances under his belt as well. To land a player of that kind of caliber in the Championship, I think is absolutely brilliant. So, a great sign in that one. Obviously, Pierre Ekwa went out on loan. He's gone to Saint-Etienne for the rest of the season. I just feel like Regis Lebris has kind of had a look at that, and what's really impressed me here, Steve, is the fact that he's not showing any kind of leanings towards the French players. So Ekwa's gone out on loan. We've brought, for me, a more experienced, better player in his position as well. And I think Salis will actually he'll challenge Dan Neil for a place in the team as well. So that's absolutely brilliant. The last player that I didn't know about until I woke up for my over 40s wee at 4 o'clock in the morning was Ghent striker Ahmed Abdullahi. He's a Nigerian, being captain under 20 level for his country. He spent most of his time with Ghent, featuring for their youth side, playing in the 3rd tier of Belgian football. He's been signed on a 4-year contract with a club option of an additional year as well. We didn't get the experienced striker that we were craving. The Mendy deal went off for all. Mendy was actually really, really trying to push for the move to Sunderland. We lost interest, I think, in the Tom Cannon situation. Tom Cannon ended up signing for Stoke, which shows you about the level of his ambition. And yeah, so listen, apart from the recognised experienced striker, I think we've done some good business. I'm happy with what's gone out on loan as well. You know, Nectar Triantis has gone out, got much needed time as well. He's gone up to Hibs again, where he was last season. Pembele, you know, you're talking a former PSG right back here. Pembele has gone to Le Havre for the rest of the season. So Regis is kind of, he knows what he wants in his squad. I think he's took a look at a couple of the lads and went, maybe they're just not ready yet. So overall, very, very happy. We'll see how that all clicks together today. I don't think any of the new signings will have been signed in time to play today down at Pompeii. So I would expect very much an unchanged lineup. But of course, if we get any news on that, we'll bring you that as well just before we finish the show. So I'm happy, Steve. I'm actually happy. I know that's kind of weighing on your chips a little bit, mate. But
you sound chipper compared to me, mate. Honestly, I've just lost all hope in these people since Amanda left. But let's look at Middlesbrough. Let's not get dragged back into that. I've got to do another hour and a half later on talking about Newcastle. I want to get myself back in a good mood. Jules is in the chat. She's tried to put up with me last night. Yeah, I mean, Middlesbrough. Tommy Conway, the centre forward, I guess, is probably that big signing who came in from Bristol City. And Mika Hamilton came in, didn't he, from Manchester City as well. So, you know, two big signings. Aidan Morris came in from Columbus, centre midfielder, and Delano Bergzorg as well came in from Maine. So they spent a little bit of money. I think they brought in a left back, Borge from Clermont Foot, and obviously Luke Aylan, who was there last season, permanent now, came in on that free transfer. But they made some good signings, Middlesbrough. I think the start of the season, though, hasn't been as they were expecting. Got up to a great start, but then it seems to have dipped a little bit. But concentrating on the players that have gone out, I guess there's players who've left. You know, the likes of Paddy McNair, Sammy Silvera, of course, who's one of Rye's favourites for obvious reasons. Hayden Coulson's gone as well. He's gone to Blackpool. Few players gone out, but overall, I mean, it looks like a positive window for Middlesbrough. I think it's just going to take time for those players to gel, Ted.
Yeah, absolutely. They've got George Edmondson very, very late on in the window as well. It was towards the deadline time last night from Ipswich Town as well. So a decent defender there, signed on loan. They've filled the gaps that they needed to. And I think, you're always going to have a list of maybe 5 or 6 people who you'd want for those positions. And all right, if you if you're kind of down to person 5 and person 6, I think as long as you've got the cover that you need, the players they've signed, I don't think they're exactly players who are going to go directly into the starting 11 right away. What they seem to be doing there, Borough, is building a squad and making sure that they don't get hit with that massive injury crisis. Newcastle and Middlesbrough last season had very, very similar seasons in the fact that they lost a lot of key players through injury. You've got to be able to replace them with like for like. Now, that doesn't happen overnight, as Newcastle are finding out as well. You've kind of got, the people who are on the periphery of the first team are going to be slightly under the standard of what you need. Hopefully with coaching, that brings them on. But over time, you obviously replace them with better. And I think that's where Middlesbrough are right now. I think they've been quite astute. I don't know who makes the signings for Middlesbrough. I don't know whether Michael Carrick has much of a say in that. But whoever's done their homework has actually done a decent job as well. We've got a goal, actually, at Cardiff City. We've got a goal for Middlesbrough. I haven't got it. It was Matty Clark has scored for Middlesbrough on the 55th minute. It's all Middlesbrough, to be honest. Like, looking at the possession and everything like that, they're absolutely hammering Cardiff, who've got off to a disastrous start in the Championship this season. But yeah, well, it's one of, listen, Matty Clark's a great example who's just put the ball away for them there. That's their first team. The likes of Edmondson will be able to fill in for Clark for a couple of weeks if there's suspensions, injuries. They've just been very astute, Steve. I've been quite impressed with the business they've done. The biggest thing for me wasn't who they signed, it was who they kept a hold of, because they were being tested for Latte Lath yesterday. Ipswich were sniffing around them because obviously they're building next season's Championship team of the year, because that's where they're going to be, obviously. So, yeah, I think keeping a hold of Latte Lath is probably the best signing that Middlesbrough could have hoped for. But what they have brought in, I think they've done a fair enough job, mate. Fair enough job.
Yeah, okay. Arsenal down to 10 men against Brighton. Declan Rice sent off for the new rule of kicking the ball away, which means he's going to miss the North London derby. And
insane.
A former Newcastle United target in a transfer window, João Pedro has equalised for Brighton, so it's now Arsenal 1, Brighton 1. Not the result that they would be hoping for Arsenal. We'll see how their title credentials measure up now with 10 men. Be interesting to see. Yeah. Other stuff at Newcastle. Let's talk about the fence, mate. This is crazy. So Newcastle United, who own the football club, but obviously lease the stand off the council. This piece of land, Ted, is actually owned by an individual, and this week he has basically erected this fence. And
it's an impressive erection, Steve.
It's a big erection, and it's big enough to cause a problem, that's for certain. And it's CCTV is in operation, 24-hour recording. He's put private parking bay on. Those signs about CCTV have come up since this has been announced, obviously, because there was a sign put on the door, which basically says private parking. I'm not sure whether that's been taken down because I'm sure it was on that number 44 door. But anyway. I mean, this is ludicrous, isn't it? This really, for me, I could be completely wrong, but this is something that our previous owner could have done. He could have sold it to this guy and just says, well, have a bit of fun with that once I'm gone, It might just be that some guy is not happy about Newcastle United being on his doorstep and thinking they can do what they want. I mean, why now? I guess is the big question, Ted. But I can imagine it's caused a bit of mirth amongst the Sunderland contingent.
But mate, listen, as far as our stadium is concerned and inviting Geordies over and things like that, unless the owner of that painted that fence red and white, we've got nowhere to run on this one. All right, it's whatever happens there. Let's just let you guys get on with that. All right, it's a big glass house and we're throwing stones, mate. Unless he owns the windows as well. I don't know. Does he? Or...
Well, this is just, big nature. Come on, lads. Don't sit on the fence. Tell us how you feel. It's a joke, mate. It is. It's a bad joke. And I haven't named the guy this week on my podcast purely because I just, I don't want him to be chucking like bloody legal.
What's he hoping to achieve from this, Steve? Is he just...
I don't know. I don't know. What, is it just a big earner? there are lots of people who do this, go and buy a little plot of land in the hope that something will be developed there. So the way that Steve Hasty described it on my Amigos show last night was that, this guy has basically found a loophole, and he's found a stretch of land which clearly isn't owned by anybody. And it's just a smart move on this guy's behalf.
Yeah.
What's the guy hoping to achieve? Make a lot of money, I would imagine, because, the bottom line is, if Newcastle United are going to stay at the ground and not move from St James's and develop at the ground, the East Stand is going to be a huge part of that. How on earth can you develop when you've got a car park there which you don't own? And I mean, the other thing is, it's you'll have possibly come up that way in the past as an away fan. Most of the time you get taken around Barrack Road, but maybe going further a little back, if you've ever made a pilgrimage to Newcastle on your own and come through town, then that's that little alleyway up from the Strawberry, which leads to the the away end. So ultimately, it's a bottleneck anyway, and 20,000 people have to come up there tomorrow, and that's the problem. You wonder whether that's going to cause an issue. I wouldn't put it past the bloke to have, maybe he's hired a tank for the weekend to park it in them parking bays, because you could just see, because people are going, oh, well, if I get up there, it's not my fault if it gets damaged. You're hearing loads of people saying stuff like that. And of course, that's why the guys put the CCTV notice up.
Yes,
but
yeah.
There's nothing saying that he doesn't go out and buy something from the scrapyard and plonk it there, and it causes a huge problem. It causes a huge problem for Newcastle, because ultimately health and safety these days, Ted, is a big thing.
Oh, don't I know it? But the thing is, listen, all right, it's a bit of notoriety, but surely he just gets in touch with the club and goes, right, I'll make this problem go away for X amount of pounds. Now, the club's not exactly skint. He can't be asking ridiculous money or anything like that, surely, because he's got nothing to gain from doing this whatsoever. I'm actually, oh God, I sound like I'm sticking up for the Geordies. I'm actually finding some sort of sympathy in all of this. I don't know what's going on, but it's just ridiculous. I mean, look, if he starts and takes it too far, it becomes a health and safety risk for supporters. And look, that's when it goes too far. If he's going to put an absolute hunk of junk there or whatever, or, Newcastle fans maybe take it badly and start wrecking gear and all that sort of thing, it becomes, like I say, a bit of a health and safety problem. We don't need that in football. We've just got back to safe standing and things like that. And, actually starting to enjoy and get our game back for the working class people. We don't need idiots like this just dangling a carrot and kind of, inciting ructions, essentially. So hopefully he sees sense, and, maybe that gets taken down, a bit of an agreement with the club, and we move on from it. But for me, that's absolutely ridiculous.
Great news.
He's a closet mag. Mate, there's a lot of stuff in my closet, but a mag isn't one of them.
An update on the movement in the Oasis ticket queue here. I'm now 274,000. That's brilliant. I'm cooking on gas now, mate. Really cooking on gas. And one of my mates, Magic, has actually been in touch to say that he's in the queue, and he's 15,000 ahead of us. So, and he's going for the same. He's going for the same gig. So I'll get the bad news probably from him. So I can probably switch my computer off after that. But anyway, we'll see. I want to talk about the cup draw next. That's because the Carabao Cup draw. I don't know whether you saw
What's that again?
Well, I know neither of you two lads are in it, you and Rye, but ultimately for us, we did manage to squeeze through on penalties again, literally squeeze through. But there was a draw prior to the game kicking off, and basically what they do now is, if you are in Europe, so if you're in any European competition, whether that be the Champions League, the nations, the European nations, whatever you are, you basically now go into a seeded draw to avoid playing each other. So it's just ridiculous. It's absolutely crazy. So basically, Man City, Liverpool, Aston Villa, Arsenal, all got Tottenham as well got an advantage in there, and it was basically an opportunity to play lower league teams, anyone who's not in Europe. So that's where we're at. That's where we're at with it. What's your feel on that? I mean, it meant that Manchester United, Man City, I think they all ended up with home draws, but they draw the team out first, home or away, and then after Newcastle's game had finished, which was the final game of that round, they then do the draw with everybody else. I mean, why give a team that's obviously better than anybody else because they've qualified for Europe? Why give them the opportunity to to have an advantage?
If there was ever any doubt that the organisers of the cup competitions have a little bit of a leaning and want to see what they regard as the plum ties, that's it right there. That is your proof right there that they don't want a championship team winning a cup. That's not good business, Steve. That doesn't sell corporate hospitality tickets. Right, what sells corporate hospitality tickets is a Man City versus Arsenal final or something like that. I would even include Newcastle in this in the terms of like they're not a fashionable club to win a cup. And I genuinely think there's such an element of snobbery in football now. There'll never be another stage where we see a championship club. I don't know who's won it since we did back in '73. There might have been one or two who's done it since then. It's just not the done thing. They just don't want that in football. They want full house at Wembley. They want all the corporate seats done. Doesn't matter what it looks like on the camera, Steve. After half time, when you see all those empty seats above the tunnel at Wembley, they don't give a stuff about that. They all want to sell corporate hospitality tickets. The best way to do that is to get the Gallagher brothers once they've come off tour, or as Big Nigel's already pointed out, they've fallen out and the tour doesn't happen anyway. They want the Gallaghers there. They want a bit of celebrity. They want all that. Davey T's exactly right. Wigan, the last small club to win the FA Cup. It just doesn't happen anymore, Steve. And this, for me, what you've just told me there is the fine example of football snobbery and just a leaning towards the big clubs actually being allowed to take part in the finals and get through. They'll pave the way. They'll almost slap the Championship and the League One clubs out of the way to get those big clubs into the further stages of the competition. Boils me blood, absolutely boils me blood, because I used to love cup games. I'm starting to think of cup games now as internationals, and you know my feelings on that. I kind of stand international football. It just bores the death of me. It's a disgrace, mate. I can see why a lot of people are upset about it. I can see some of the comments coming through there from Geordies, from Mackems and Borough fans as well. Not that Borough need to worry about it, obviously, like they only go a little bit further than us, but yeah, that needs to change. Surely that's an unfair advantage, like you say.
Yeah, no, massively unfair advantage, but something that's not going to change anytime soon.
No.
Yeah, and I agree where Wigan were the last big small club to win the FA Cup. Other news in the Northeast this week: Nobby Solano sacked after 6 games at Blyth Spartans, who are currently playing in the FA Cup today. God, forget about the Newcastle United allegiance here. I mean, he is a Newcastle legend, but he was appointed by the club in May. Bearing in mind they were relegated from National League North last year. They were horrendous last year, but Nobby failed to record a victory in 6 games in charge of the club, losing 3 of those games, and lost to Morpeth Town, which was like the final game that he was in charge of, 4-1. David Stockdale has taken charge of the FA Cup match against Campion today. But I don't know, it seemed like a strange appointment because Blyth clearly have got problems in the boardroom and off the pitch. I know Nobby. I've met Nobby, got to know him quite well. He just wants to manage. He just wants to be involved in football. He'd love to be involved in, a capacity that means something at Newcastle United. And the guy's got good pedigree. I mean, he was assistant to Peru's national team manager, Ricardo Gareca, and he helped get them to the World Cup, which I think that was the first time they got there in 34 years. So he's got pedigree, but just not good enough for Blyth Spartans. It's a strange story, that. Strange story.
I don't think he's been exactly given a massive amount of time to do anything with that. I mean, I hate using the example of Alex Ferguson, but I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah, it took him a long time to turn a juggernaut like Manchester United around. Even he was, I guess, under pressure at some point. But surely, somebody with the experience that Nobby Solano has, who's played European football, he played top-flight football for a long time, a very talented player as well, as much as that sticks in my throat to say. Of course he was. And a fantastic trumpet player, Steve. You know I love Nobby for that. And that's obviously we're both mutual brass players ourselves. So I'm a big fan of Nobby and his band, absolutely brilliant. He needs to be given a chance. And I actually respect the guy for actually, going to somewhere like Blyth Spartans. It's not even a league side. The guy's actually setting his own expectations of going, do you know what? I'm going to try some non-league stuff. Let's see if it works, and let's try our stuff out. I just find it a little bit almost distasteful and disrespectful not to give the guy a bit more of an opportunity and a bit more time to, impart some of his wisdom on the players. For me, I think somebody like that should be involved in Newcastle's academy, like what we had with Kevin Ball, somebody who gets the club, who understands what it's like to represent a big club in the Northeast. And I think you need individuals like that around your club. So hopefully, maybe Newcastle United might actually see some sense and get them involved with their own squad. Because, look, even passing on life advice to some young players coming through, this country is very, very critical of young players because they get a lot of money very early on in their career, Steve. And somebody like Nobby Solano is there to kind of just, maybe keep their feet on the ground, explain to them how life is, how the press is going to treat them, and just, maybe just gear them more towards the back page than what they are on the front page. I think that would be great for the club, to be honest. So as much as it hasn't worked out at Blyth, and Blyth were an outstanding non-league side, it's all fell apart a little bit. Yeah, why not take a punt on somebody who obviously still has an affinity for the Northeast? He could live anywhere in the world. He's I'm sure Nobby's made his money, but choosing to come back to the Northeast and all that, you've got to take your hat off to somebody like that and show them some respect. Obviously, they respect the Northeast people, so give them a chance.
Yeah, give him a chance. As I say, he wants to. He lives in the Northeast. He's somebody who wants to stay in the Northeast. But yeah, good to see him. Good to see him.
I'd love to do some duets with him on the trumpet, Steve. If you can arrange that sometime,
I'm sure I could if you came over, but he's not. He hasn't picked a trumpet up for years, Nobby, unfortunately. But he always gets asked about it. It's something that he's obviously synonymous with. Obviously Sunderland sitting top of the league. I mean, is it still taking a bit of time to sink in, that, Ted?
It has a little bit, to be honest. It's I live and work out here in Cyprus, and it's a bit of a I'm a bit of an oddity in the fact that I support Sunderland. There's not too many of us on this small island, let's be honest. So coming into work and people turn around to me going, "Hey, you all have started off all right, top of the league," and I'm kind of going, blimey, people are actually taking notice of this. And yeah, it's all a bit foreign. It's a strange feeling, but listen, Regis Lebris has done an absolutely marvellous job since coming in. And when you listen to what the players have got to say about him, about his ideas, about everybody has to know their role in the team on match day. And I like that. And it's nice to have a style of play. And some of the football against Burnley, especially in that first half, where it just clicked, and we've got that kind of Mowbray-esque kind of one or two touch football, looking really positive in attack. Fans obviously absolutely loving that. Apparently the atmosphere there. I'm only ever allowed to watch it on TV here, but the atmosphere there apparently was fantastic. And if we can keep that going, those 3 wins, Steve, we get a win today. Honestly, we're not going to want this whole this whole international break. 4 wins off the bounce if we get it today, and we're very, very capable of getting it as well. That puts us in such a strong frame of mind going into that international break. And like what was said in a couple of shows previously, confidence is a big thing. Sunderland fans have waited, a little while for us to kind of get that little bit of swagger, get that little bit of attitude back in our play again. And listen, I honestly feel like if we can maintain this, we're not going to win every game. I'm going to be realistic. You know me, I'm a realist when it comes to me football. I'll be critical of the team when they don't perform. But right now, I can't feel like there's any there's no chink in the armor. Even if we got beat today and actually put in a decent performance and actually, displayed some good football and ability, some real attacking intent, I honestly think the fans would be happy with that. And Sunderland fans are the same as any other North East club. We cheer a tackle as much as we cheer a goal. So as long as there's a bit of fight and a bit of not just settling and sideways passing and all that absolute guff that we had to go through with Michael Beale and Doddsy after it as well. Let's face it, the Dodds stuff was it was a bit insipid to watch by the end of the season. So yes, it is unusual. We're enjoying it. Bring on Pompey today. I've got a funny feeling that we might get a decent result today. Wilson Isidore, thank you, big night for that. Wilson Isidore is on the bench, one of the new signings who came in from Lokomotiv Moscow. So let's see what he's all about as well. Hemir didn't end up signing for Juventus. Where that was coming from, I've got no idea. Unless Juventus have got some sort of a C or D team lower down in the Italian leagues, I've got no idea. But listen. Let's enjoy the ride. We've got one more game before it. As Davey T's mentioning there, momentum. Let's keep the momentum going. Let's ignore this international break. Hopefully Regis Labris might have a behind the closed doors friendly sorted for the lads just to get them some time in their legs. Let's get everybody moving and let's do it. It's a good start of the season. You've just got to keep it going. You've got to build on it, Steve. So as much as it's a surprise, yes, it is. But now we expect it. There's expectation with it.
Has he bought your owner a bit of reprieve? Because I remember in the summer when we were going backwards and forwards in the WhatsApp group, your owner was getting a bit of stick. Lack of appointing a manager. You seem to be waiting for months to appoint anybody, and people rejecting it and that. So he must have bought the owner a bit of time.
I think it has. I really do. It's been an interesting appointment. I'll tell you, I'm going to get mocked for this, but I honestly don't care. I get Wenger vibes from him. Mm-hmm. I get Regis Labris comes across like a proper student of the game. And I really think this considered approach, he's not an excitable manager. He's not going to sort of flap his hands on the touchline and shout at officials and all that sort of thing. You just get the feeling this guy is a proper student of the game. And listen, if the performances are there, we'll be absolutely fine. And Kirill Louis-Dreyfus will have monuments erected in his honour and all that sort of thing if we were to make it back to the promised land of the Premier League, of course. But yeah, he's bought him a serious amount of time because listen, it's a results business, to use that well-worn expression. And while you're winning, Steve, everyone's happy, aren't they? Do you want the actually? We've just got the starting lineup there now. It's just coming from Sunderland. Okay, so no surprising goalkeeper. Obviously, got Patterson at number 1. We've got Hume at right back, 09, and Ballard. Obviously, Aji Alessi pulled up injured during the week. He's got an ankle problem, set to be out for some time apparently. Ballard comes back in for his first start of the season. Dennis Serkin at left back, of course, who's been a revelation this season. That lad is Premier League class. He really is. We've got Alan Brown, Chris Rigg, Roberts, Job, and Mundell making up a midfield, and we've got Mayender up front. Like I said, Rusin is on the bench. Isidore, who's one of the new signings, he's there. Helder, Poveda, also on the bench again. Watson, Crompton, Jones, and Tutierov make up the bench as well. So an unsurprising first 11. The only real change there, of course, being Ballard coming back in for Alessi. Let's see what we've got.
Matt Ritchie lying in wait for Sunderland as well today, of course, at Portsmouth. I mean, give us your thoughts on the game before we turn our attentions to Newcastle United. Yeah,
listen, Portsmouth haven't exactly disgraced themselves since coming back up. Good result against Borough. They're a strong side, and when you come up from League One, you've probably got a bit more of a physical edge because of the style of play in League One. It's not as quick. I think if Sunderland can play anything like the first 45 minutes that they did against Burnley, I think they could be out of sight in this one. I just don't think Portsmouth have the pace to keep up with that kind of play. But they'll hurt you. They're a big side, Portsmouth. They're a bunch of physically adept players. Matt Ritchie, yes, it has come to my attention as well. That's quite a concern because ex-Mags always love to play against Sunderland. We've seen it plenty of times in the past. There was ex-Mags used to love playing for Sunderland. Good afternoon, Michael Chopra, if you're watching. So yeah, listen, it's always a challenge. The Championship is an extremely difficult league to get out of, and every game has got its own merits. Portsmouth will be up for this. There's a little bit of needle there from the League One days. So I see a few rough challenges. I definitely see a few yellow cards. Obviously, if you're into that kind of betting, and obviously bet responsibly, I would get your money on a few yellow cards being shown today because it'll be a bit tasty. 09's not very popular down there. He was punched a couple of times by Portsmouth fans when he went over the barrier in the playoff semis. So yes, it's going to be tasty. I just see us being a bit too strong. I think we'll play far better football than what Portsmouth will. I just don't think we can keep it going with the clean sheets. I'm going to go for a 3-1, Steve, today. That's sticking me neck out a little bit. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, I predicted Sunderland to get beaten narrowly at Burnley, but they did the complete opposite. They went and did a job on Burnley, which is a huge win and could be a huge win if Sunderland continue at the top end of the table. Portsmouth, though, again, it's a tough trip. It's probably one of the furthest away trips of the season for them, but it's all about momentum. And Sunderland seem to have the bit between their teeth and seem to have players who are willing to bust a gut for the manager. So let's go for a 2-1 win for Sunderland today. I think that's my prediction.
Wow! It's we agree on something.
Yeah, we do. But yeah, I went for a defeat last week. I think you've got more than enough to beat Portsmouth. But
2-0 Borough now.
2-0 Middlesbrough. That's Rye will be going absolutely mental on his channel today.
I'm just going to pull my earphones out to see if I can hear. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. Arsenal 1, Brighton 1 is still the score in the Premier League. 82 minutes played. Arsenal down to 10 men with Declan Rice being sent off for kicking the ball away. So on to Newcastle United. And we haven't played well this season. We got away with it against Southampton. We got away with it against Bournemouth. And now, the Carabao Cup, we played Forest reserves, drew 1-1, but won on penalties. So there is a feeling of discontent around Newcastle with the football. Even more of a feeling of discontent now with the lack of activity in the transfers. Newcastle, of course, only bringing in 5 players, one of which was Lewis Hall, who was here last season on loan anyway. Outbound, of course, as I've already discussed, losing Minty and Anderson has upset a lot of people. Got rid of some of the dead wood and players who were past the sell-by date, the likes of Matt Ritchie, Loris Karius, Paul Dummett, Ryan Fraser, of course, which is great. But it's not a happy camp, Newcastle, at the moment. And Tottenham come to Newcastle tomorrow for a 1:30 kickoff live on Sky Sport with their, probably with their tails up a little bit. They're coming to Newcastle hoping they can catch them off guard. Team news for Newcastle. Callum Wilson, of course, is still on the injured list along with Lewis Miley, Jamal Lascelles and Sven Botman. Joe Willock joins them, scored the goal against Forest, but unfortunately took a knock. Potentially going to be out for 4 weeks with what he got, which isn't as bad as it probably first looked. Although it looked like a dead leg to me, and I would have played on. I'm sure you would have, Ted, back in the old days. But it seems to be a little bit more, more of an injury there. So 4 weeks he's out for.
You used to get one of them in dinner time football and still play, Steve. I don't
play
know what's
on,
wrong
man.
with them.
Just play on, for God's sake. Fabian Shaw is serving the final game of his 3-game suspension for that red card against Southampton. So, I mean, that's a positive in the sense that he'll be back for the next game after the international break, and he served it all in a week. Eddie Howe did confirm anyway about Willock that it was a thigh problem. So he's had a scan, but it didn't show any serious injury. So that is good news. As for Tottenham, they come to Newcastle with the main man out, I guess. Dominic Solanke was the man who they spent a lot of money on this summer. He's got an ankle injury, so he isn't going to play. Rodrigo, Benteke, Mickey van der Ven and Destiny will all be available. And both sides have got 4 points. Spurs got a 1-1 draw at Leicester and won 4-0 at home over Everton. For me, a lot of people will be looking at previous games. Spurs do not travel well to St James's Park. That is for certain. And in the last couple of seasons, we've won 4-0 and 6-1. But previous to that, we've had a couple of dodgy results against them. And I've got a feeling it could be like that. I've got a feeling it could be a tighter game than people are expecting tomorrow. I genuinely think that Spurs' tails will be up. They'll be hoping they can catch Newcastle unawares. I think there will be, if Newcastle can't get off to a good start, an animosity around the ground. And that's just the way it is. It's not a Newcastle disease that it happens all around the grounds. And I genuinely think that we've got a tough game on our hands. So for me, I genuinely think Newcastle will probably line up with Nick Pope in goal. I think the back four is where he has to make his decisions. Kieran Trippier hasn't left, so I think he'll play Trippier right back. I think he will go for Kraft and Dan Burn at centre half again. Left back's where he's going to make a decision, and I'd like to think he goes with Lewis Hall and doesn't go for somebody who should be playing centre half. Stick with Hall at left back. I think the centre midfield is where I would make a change. Joe Linton hasn't played well in these opening games, and we've got a lot of midfielders who make some choice. So coming off the back of a successful return on Wednesday, I would go for Bruno and Tonali together. I would drop Joe Linton out of the equation. I would certainly go for Sean Longstaff at home. I know he's not everyone's favourite. That would be me three. And then I would go for Barnes on one side, Gordon on the other side, and Isak up front. That would be me starting lineup. I think we'll get a goal from Isak. I don't think he's going to go 4 games without a goal, and I think we will. I think we'll come away with a draw. I genuinely don't think Newcastle will win this tomorrow. I think there'll be, a point, and I don't think we could complain with a point. I think the point will be a good point against a team that's going to be in and around us, but. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Newcastle can start well. I hope Spurs do travel as badly as they have in the last couple of games in the last couple of seasons. But I've just got a feeling that it's going to be a tighter game than the last couple of years, and that we're going to come away with a draw.
It interested me earlier this week with Trippier, this decision to retire from international football, Steve. Is it true? The rumour is that their lass has taken his passport off him, so he cannot travel as far.
It's an unfortunate situation that he finds himself in his personal life of his own making, but ultimately, I think he was waiting for Bayern Munich to come back in, and they haven't come back in, and he's staying at the moment. I mean,
are you happy with that, Steve? Are you happy with him to take him around?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I think Livramento still has a bit to learn. Great to see Tino being picked for England this week. He deserves a call-up, but I think he's still got a bit to learn. And I think he would admit that himself. He's only a young lad. So is Lewis Hall. Those two players will only get better at Newcastle under Eddie Howe. But, yeah, I think keeping Trippier this season is, certainly to the next window is wise. But, if he's going to be here at the end of the season, that's great. Got real problems at the end of next summer when we've got about 15 players out of contract. But we'll keep that for another day. But I'm happy to see Trippier staying in. Good.
I think it's one of those useful players to have around. You need experienced heads, and the experience he's got of playing abroad. I was going to say playing away. I'm sorry. I couldn't resist it. No, but in all seriousness, a very, very good senior pro to have around the squad. And if Tino Livramento, and a big well done to that lad for his England call up. He's a player who I like, apart from the colour of shirt he plays in. I do really like him as a player. I think he's a modern fullback, Steve. He's he's got a bit of attacking flair about him, as well as that defensive job that he does pretty well for such a young lad. If you're going to learn anything, you're going to learn from a guy who's played X amount of England internationals, played for Atletico Madrid in one of the most fantastic stadiums and clubs in all the world. Cracking player to learn from. So I think it would suit Newcastle to keep him around for just a little bit longer. Whether he stays on in a coaching capacity, because what is he now? 33, is he?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, he's well into his 30s, so he hasn't got that long left. I don't think he's one of these players who will drop down into Championship and into League One and all that sort of thing. I think he'll want to bow out somewhere near the top. So you never know, maybe a coaching position, something like that. I think he'd be a very, very good person to have around the club. But yeah, it was the England call-ups. Obviously, Nick Pope back in the squad as well, mate. I actually campaigned when we spoke before the Euros. I thought Nick Pope should have been in the squad as well. Obviously, he had that big injury last season as well. But you must be happy that Newcastle players getting some international recognition. That's always good for the club, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. As long as they don't get injured.
Yeah. There's a few comments coming through, Steve. I think there's people concerned. Where are you with the queue now?
138,000.
You practically through the door, mate.
I am, yeah. You're placing.
You can see the one eyebrow from here.
What do you reckon? And what's your prediction for Newcastle's game?
I think. I'm going to sit on the fence. No pun intended. To what we discussed earlier on. Like, there's plenty of people going to be sitting on that fence. I'm telling you. It's all about who scores first, Steve. I think if Newcastle get an early goal, I can honestly see Spurs just going, "Oh, not again," and I think their heads will go. If you score within the first 20 minutes, I can see you winning this 3-0. And I honestly can. However, if Spurs get that first goal, I can see the crowd turning on them. And that is not a nice place for any player or any manager or any owner or any chief exec if the Newcastle fans turn on them. And I think it just could go a little bit poisonous. Having said all of that, I'm going to go for an entertaining draw, like what you give us last week. I see a 2-2 draw. I think it's two very good sides. I think Newcastle certainly always give Spurs a game. I can just see an entertaining score draw with this one.
Okay, obviously Middlesbrough already playing today and still leading by 2-0, I think.
Yeah, and Aaron Ramsey own goal was the second goal for former Juventus player playing for Cardiff City and getting tonked on their own ground 2-0 by Middlesbrough. It doesn't get worse than that, does it?
Gary says Arsenal are chucking themselves on the floor every few minutes. They're 93 minutes.
What's new?
93 minutes gone in that game. Still 1-1. I guess Arsenal would take that with Declan Rice going off, but he will miss the Spurs derby. And Blackburn won. Burnley won in the Lancashire derby. 91 minutes played there. Coventry 0. Norwich 1 is the latest score in that game as well. A few early kickoffs today in the Championship. I guess, we just want to give Gateshead a quick mention as well. They are still, flying high, I guess, in their division. And they've really kick-started the season. They're sitting second, second in the table. And, they're just behind Eastleigh. 2 points behind Eastleigh, level on games. But great start for the Tynesiders.
Absolutely brilliant. We said it last week, Steve. I mean, I was really impressed with them pre-season. And what I love to see in non-league football is not just like sort of, it's cracking banter on the stands in Northeast football, especially the non-league stuff. But it's not all kick and rush and Route 1 stuff. And they actually play some decent football. So to see them excelling like that, we obviously want to see more and more of these Northeast clubs do that. But I really fancy Gateshead to kick on. If they can really get this stadium situation sorted out, then, the sky's the limit here. They've obviously got some serious potential about them, and keep the players they've got, keep that together. Absolutely brilliant. Let's see it. Gateshead Council, please get around the table with the club and let's see if you can sort this situation out with the stadium, because essentially the council's cost them promotion. Let's be realistic about it. They need to do something about that, and they need to come to some sort of agreement and at least develop the stadium. What's a few extra seats going to cost them ultimately? In terms of if Gateshead were to get in the league, they're going to make way more than that in terms of incoming revenue.
Yeah,
help them out because they're a good side. They're a well-run club as well. You've got to say that, and we want all the North East teams to work their way up. Your Darlingtons, your Bishop Aucklands, Spenny Moors, Brandon Uniteds, all of that.
Hartlepool.
Of course.
they play Eastleigh today anyway. Eastleigh first, Gateshead second at the Gateshead Stadium, International Stadium. So good luck to Gateshead today in that game. Got 5 minutes left. Unbelievably, just as the season has started, we've got an international break, Ted, and we discussed this when we were working on our show last year. You know, it affects teams in different ways, but having an international break, especially if Sunderland can go to Portsmouth today and get a win, you know, Newcastle, if they can stay unbeaten against Spurs, we've got an unbeaten start of the season and we're still in the next round. No matter what kind of apathy surrounding the club at the moment, it wouldn't be a bad start. But then you've got an international break, and suddenly, you know, it can throw a spanner in the works. I'm not a fan of it. Are you?
No, not at all. I absolutely can't abide international football. I didn't get excited about the Euros. I went to the pub and watched the games because it's the sociable thing to do. You know, you go and have a couple of pints, you go and have a bit of laugh. It's the same old with England. We'll get through the qualification stages. We'll just about sort of convince ourselves we're good enough to get out the group stage. We've blagged our way to a couple of finals, but as soon as we come up against a decent team, England get beat. And it's the same thing every single time, and it's going to take a big change. I half hoped, not only because it would upset Newcastle fans, but I half hoped that Eddie Howe would get the England job. I really did. He might yet. You know, it's still very much a temporary basis for Lee Carsley. If it goes horribly in the next couple of weeks for Eddie Howe, and things get a bit twitchy in the Newcastle boardroom, we might still see that. But the name of Lee Carsley as temporary manager for England doesn't excite me in any way, shape or form. We could be potentially going into this international break on 4 wins. There's not a chance. There's not a chance we want an international break at this stage. And it's just one of them things we've got to put up with. Obviously, you know, in terms of the England squad, it doesn't matter to us ever. I can't remember the last time a championship player was actually picked for the England squad. I'm sure somebody's going to fire that into a comment very, very soon. But yeah, I just can't be bothered with it, Steve. I haven't been properly excited about international football since 1996. Since then, just forget it. Absolutely forget it. It's Davey T's made a great point there, by the way. Worst thing about the break is if you have a bad result before it. That lingers. You're right, Davey. Absolutely right. It's inconvenient. For me, scrap it. Scrap the international break. We're supposed to be, all clubs should be developing academies, certainly in the top 2 divisions. There's no excuse. You should be working on bringing academy players through. For me, play on. Just play right the way through. Use your academy players, use your youth players to good effect. Certainly, this would level the playing field a lot for the likes of Man City. Maybe not for Chelsea because they've got about 58,000 players on their books. But for me, it would be great. It'd be absolutely fantastic for young players to get an opportunity. Right, it's an international break. You lads can now step up into the first team and on you go. Be brilliant for football, that.
Would be, yeah. Don't think it'll ever change. It won't change anytime soon. September, October, November, international breaks. I'm 94,000th in the queue now. It's starting to cook on gas. Lots of people probably getting through going, oh, God.
Just got to roll with it, Steve. Just got to roll with it.
Well, I have, yeah. I mean, I'll probably end up with this.
Or just cigarettes and alcohol.
Or just cigarettes and alcohol, yeah, definitely. As always, great to share an hour with you, mate. We'll hopefully have Rye back on next week for the Freezer Crowd Northeast Football Podcast. But for now, that's it. Take care, lad. See you later.
See you later.